I'm a booksties. Welcome back to my channel. Alright guys, this week we are going to be tackling the dreaded book slump because I am currently in one. So this week we're going to try to reset and try to get me back on track. I did end up lowering my book goal from 150 to 100 books because I was finding that like I was just running through books and not really like diving in and loving them the way that I used to. It kind of started to feel like I need to read this book to create content instead of I need to read this book because I love to read, if that makes any sense. Yeah, so I've been kind of feeling like just like down and like just not wanting to read, and that's never anything I want because I love being involved in these stories and just being transported into these stories. So this week we're gonna try to reset and go back to stuff that I love and try to get out of this reading slump. If it takes longer than a week, then it takes longer than a week. But for now, I'm abandoning the TBR list that I created. And I'm going to go back to my roots, if you will. I guess B's tip number one is going to be to revisit books that brought you immense joy, okay? For me, a lot of stuff has been coming up recently with ACOTAR because Sarah J. Maas, went on the Call Her Daddy podcast and she revealed that the 6th and 7th book of ACOTAR is going to be releasing later on this year. So that kind of really has been making me want to reread certain books in the series. So I will be reading A Court of Mist and Fury, a little bit of A Court of Wings and Ruin because I don't like the second half of the book. I only like the first half. And then I'm going to read A Court of Silver Flames. And then, or I'll switch in between, I want to reread certain books in the Windy City series because I just finished a new book and it has put me into a slump that I have been trying to get away from. So I figure if I reread those books, I'm still counting those to my 100 book goal because they're books I read. But yeah, so that's going to be the first step. And if that doesn't work, we'll see. At least I'm reading again. That's the benefit, right? So we're going to go through this week and we're going to see how much I get through. All right. So it is currently 8:30. We are going to read for about an hour-ish. We're going to start with A Court of Mist and Fury. As you can tell, she was very loved. And I do have the old models because I know they updated the covers. I do have the older ones because, again, I read this 6-7 years ago. But yes. Now let me get into ACOTAR before I read this. Because the first book is ACOTAR, but I'm skipping to the second one because the first one is done for me. Like, it is what it is. I know what it is. I know what it's about. Yeah, enough. The second one. Life-changing. Okay. I actually read this book during COVID. This was one of the books that really transitioned me back into loving books because the world building, and after that interview that Sarah J. Maas had with Alex Earl on the Call Her Daddy podcast, I feel like I see much more into her, and knowing that she loves Lord of the Rings, this world is very much like how I envisioned the movie. I never read Lord of the Rings, but just the movie alone, the setting was just immaculate, and the way that she writes and describes this setting in her books in general is just mind-blowing. So we're gonna go ahead and read this while we eat some dinner. Okay, guys, I think I'm officially getting out of my reading slump. It's Tuesday. I just finished A Court of Mist and Fury, and I'm gonna go into A Court of Wings and Ruin. Now I am gonna skip through this because I don't feel the need to read the whole book when I don't really want to. But I'm going to skim through this. I'll probably finish this tonight. I know all this. But like I said, I'm going to skip through it and just read the parts that I want. I feel like if you already read it and you can tell this book has also been loved, it's okay if you just skip through it. The whole point is to get yourself out of a reading slump, so it's okay. You make the rules, I make my own rules. Okay? And then we're gonna go into the Windy City series probably tomorrow, but I'm feeling good, you guys. I'm feeling rejuvenized. Now, normally, one of my tips for getting out of a reading slump, I would say focus on one book at a time. However, I did just start a new audiobook. I could not get down with Hot Chocolate on a Thursday. Now, don't get me wrong, it sounds apt. I listened to probably like an hour of it and it was actually really good. It just wouldn't help. It was very slow paced. I feel like I needed a romance to really kick myself into gear. So right now I'm listening to All Roads Lead Here and I'm feeling good. I'm feeling good, guys. So who are we finishing a book in 2 days? So that's tip number 2. Read as much as you want, and it's okay if you skim through the pages of a book that you already read because you know the story. You're just trying to relive and reminisce, if you will. So we're gonna read a little and then we'll get back to my next tip on how to get out of a reading slump. I finished A Court of Wings and Ruin. Who am I? 2 books? Tomorrow I'll be starting Caught Up in the Windy City series. I was debating if I wanted to read the whole series or just certain books that I really, really liked. But yeah, I think I'm just gonna see how I feel. I'm gonna read what I want, and then if I want to go back and read the first 2 books, I'll go back and read the first 2 books. You get what I mean? I guess my tip for you is just really go back and read what you want. You know, like it's gonna be so difficult to get yourself out of a slump if you don't reminisce and go back to books that really like touched your heart, if that makes sense. So I'm gonna sit here, I'm gonna watch my TV show, and I'm gonna move on with the rest of my night. I will see you guys tomorrow. Okay, guys. I, this week, have finished 4 books. I think I can say that my reading slump has been cured. I am going to continue on in the Windy City series because I want to finish Rewind It Back, and then I might go back to the first 2 books because I genuinely love the storyline so much, and I feel like it's really bringing out such a joy of reading that yeah, I'm definitely gonna go back to the first 2 books after I finish this next book. But I'm just gonna go through some tips that helped me this week that I think if you're in a reading slump, you should try to practice or do. And then I'm gonna tell you some stuff that people have recommended to me because I did a poll on my TikTok and my Instagram and I asked like what are some things that help others get out of reading slumps, and this is what they told me. So number 1, you definitely should revisit stories that made you fall in love with reading. That's personally what I did, and it really helped me, like tremendously helped me. So that's definitely number 1 I would recommend. Number 2, this was recommended to me that you should read a story not in your normal area that you read. So for me, typically I read in my bed or in my car / at work. I instead decided to go to a cafe and read while I ate. It was good. It was nice to get out and like read and like get like that atmospheric type of vibe, you know, that cozy type of vibe. So that was a really good tip. The next one, sometimes it works. I don't always recommend it because this is what kind of put me into a reading slump. But some people say to let a TBR jar choose your next read because sometimes you need a sort of like mystery because you're gonna pull out a book, you're not gonna know what it is. So this could help in some cases. It definitely didn't in my case, but it could. It's potentially, right? And then what I also did was I laid in bed, had a mask on, and ate some ice cream while I read, and that feels like you're in a little spa, a little vacation, if you will, right? That definitely helped as well. Honestly, that's like the steps that I took that really helped me out of my reading slump. And like I said, see, you're gonna know yourself what's the right steps for you. I can only give you advice, but I definitely suggest going back to a book that made you fall in love with reading again. Yeah, because that's what I'm doing, and honestly, it's been so great. I would also say you know yourself the best. So if some days you don't feel like reading, don't. Don't force yourself because honestly, it it ruins the love of reading. I feel like I was just reading story after story after story and it was just blending together. That's why I had to lower my book goal for the year because I was just reading a story just to read a story, not to really live in it and experience it. If that makes any sense. That's definitely like a key part to it is you know yourself best. So you know if you're going to be forcing yourself to read a story or really live in it and enjoy the story as a whole. You know? That's I think was my problem was that I was just reading and pulling books out that just kind of were the same and like I couldn't really connect. And I think as I've been reading, I have really been understanding that I can like a book from the start or I know that I'm going to hate a book from the start. And there have been certain books that I have read that I have not liked at all at all. And I think I need to get comfortable with DNFing books because if not, we're going to be back in the same circle because some of these books, yowzer, it's it's a little crazy. Yeah, so that's definitely my tip is you know yourself best so you know when to stop or when not to read at all. Because you know what? Reading the Windy City series again, it's crazy to me how easily it was to fall in love with a story that I already know the ending and I know where the story's going, but the book still is taking me on this like roller coaster of emotions. But I already know the ending. I already know how it's going to end, but I still loved every single moment of it. So that's what I definitely think is you need to find an author who writes stories that gets you involved and intrigued and invested in like that because that's honestly going to be the best tip to get you out of a reading slump. Let me know if you guys have any tips to get out of reading slump because I'm sure by the end of this year I will probably be in another one. I'm sure of it. So let me know if you guys have any tips. Yeah. And I will see you guys next week for the next video. Bye, booksties!